Black woman denied access to private jet. Turns out it's hers, and she fires the entire crew. Have you ever faced a moment where the world seemed to judge you before you had the chance to speak? The private aviation terminal basked under the afternoon sun, its modern architecture glinting in the light. Limousines with tinted windows sat in the parking lot, their sleek exteriors reflecting the polished world of luxury travelers. Inside, high-end clients in fine attire moved through the terminal with purposeful ease, their conversations quiet but filled with importance. Maya Davis stepped out of her dark SUV, her heels clicking decisively on the pavement. She walked with grace, dressed in a sharp black blazer over a soft cream blouse, a look that exuded both sophistication and confidence. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun, and her calm demeanor was the perfect counterpoint to the bustling surroundings. She rolled her small suitcase behind her as she approached the entrance. The doors slid open with a soft whir, ushering her into a world of polished marble and subtle luxury. The air smelled faintly of leather and espresso, the scent blending effortlessly with the ambience of quiet elegance. Maya made her way to the check-in counter, where a polite young woman greeted her. "Good afternoon, miss," the attendant said with a smile. "How may I assist you today?" "I'm Maya Davis," she replied, her voice steady and composed. "I have a reservation for a private flight to New York." The attendant quickly typed away, her eyes scanning the screen. A moment passed before she looked up with a professional smile. "Yes, Miss Davis, your jet is all set. The crew is boarding now. Would you prefer to wait here, or should I direct you to the plane? I'll head to the jet directly." "Thank you," Maya replied with a polite nod. The attendant gestured towards the gate. "Gate 4, right after the VIP lounge. Have a great flight." Maya nodded again and made her way towards the gate. Her heels echoed softly on the polished floor, the sound of her footsteps almost drowned by the hum of private jets on the tarmac. As she neared Gate 4, she could see the sleek jet glinting in the sunlight. A uniformed man stood by the entrance. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and exuded authority in his captain's uniform. Maya smiled politely as she approached him, but he didn't return the gesture. Instead, his gaze was cold, and his eyes narrowed slightly. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone sharp. "I'm here for the flight to New York," Maya answered calmly. The captain's eyes scanned her luggage before flicking back to her. He looked her up and down. Then his lips curled into a dismissive smile. "This is a private flight, miss," he said, his tone laced with condescension. "Perhaps you've made a mistake. You should head to the main terminal." Maya raised an eyebrow, but didn't react outwardly. "This is Gate 4, right?" "It is," he said, his voice dripping with emphasis on the word private. "But this jet is reserved for high-end clients. I doubt you're on this flight." Maya's grip tightened around the handle of her suitcase, but she remained poised. "I am indeed a high-end client," she replied calmly. The captain chuckled dismissively, shaking his head as if he were in disbelief. "You might want to check with the main terminal. This isn't the kind of flight you just book," he said, gesturing vaguely as if she were confused. Before Maya could respond, a voice interrupted. "Is there an issue here?" A flight attendant, clad in a crisp uniform, approached them. Her clipboard in hand, she looked between the captain and Maya, then back to the captain with a quizzical look. "It's just some confusion," the captain muttered, his tone dismissive. "She thinks she's on this flight." The flight attendant gave Maya a quick glance before addressing her. "Miss, do you have a confirmation number or a ticket for this flight?" she asked, her tone neutral but tinged with skepticism. Maya calmly pulled out her phone, tapped a few buttons, and handed the screen to the flight attendant. The woman's eyes widened slightly as she read the confirmation, but she quickly returned the phone with a professional smile. "Everything checks out," she said. "I'll let the crew know." The captain frowned deeply but didn't speak. Reluctantly, he stepped aside, allowing Maya to proceed toward the jet. Maya ascended the steps to the private jet, the air thick with unspoken judgments. She could feel the weight of the crew's skepticism, the assumption that someone who looked like her could never be in charge. Yet, she kept her head high, her steps measured, each one a small victory against their assumptions. Inside the cabin, Maya was momentarily lost in the opulence. Soft leather seats in deep brown lined the walls, and elegant wooden panels gleamed under recessed lighting. The scent of fresh flowers blended with the faint aroma of citrus, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. Her moment of calm was short-lived. As she stepped further into the cabin, she saw the crew. The captain followed closely behind her, his posture tense, his demeanor still hostile. The flight attendant whispered something to another crew member, and Maya overheard the words, "She doesn't belong here." The words hit her like a punch, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she turned to face the captain, her voice steady but firm. "Captain," Maya said, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. This flight was arranged under very specific conditions." The captain stepped forward, his face tightening in an exaggerated show of formality. "I'm afraid this flight was booked for a very select few. As much as I'd love to assist you, miss, this requires the proper protocol." Maya's eyes hardened, and she gave him a measured look. "I'm well aware of the protocol, Captain. I arranged it myself." The captain paused, visibly taken aback. "These arrangements are highly exclusive. You may have been misinformed," he said. "Misinformed?" Maya repeated, her voice smooth but sharp. "By who? By the aviation team at Davis Enterprises? Or by the executive division that oversees this aircraft?" The captain faltered, his words catching in his throat. "Davis Enterprises," Maya continued, folding her arms with confidence. "The company that owns this jet. My company." The realization hit them all at once. The crew stood motionless, their expressions shifting from skepticism to embarrassment as the weight of her words sank in. "I'm not here to explain your ignorance," Maya said coldly, her voice echoing with authority. "I'm here to ensure this never happens again. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fire all of you." A stunned silence followed. No one spoke, and the reality of the situation settled heavily in the air. "You are dismissed," Maya said, her gaze sweeping over the crew. "Effective immediately." The captain's mouth opened, but no words came out. The flight attendants stood frozen, their hands trembling slightly. Maya turned to the door, signaling her assistant to step in and deal with the crew's replacement. As she walked out of the jet, a wave of satisfaction washed over her. She had reclaimed her dignity in that moment, teaching those who had judged her a powerful lesson. Maya settled into the plush seat of the jet, her heart steady as the engines roared to life. The plane began its ascent, and she looked out the window, a faint smile on her lips. The skies opened before her, just as they had always opened for her. The woman who defied expectations and built her own empire. As the jet soared higher into the sky, Elena Harper leaned back in her seat, the hum of the engines filling the space around her. She allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection, contemplating the journey that had led her to this pivotal point. It wasn't just about the private jet, the luxury, or even the corporate empire she had built from the ground up. It was about something deeper, a moment of personal reckoning, a stand against prejudice, and a declaration that no one had the right to define her worth based on appearances. In the face of systemic bias, Elena had experienced firsthand how assumptions could be made about a person simply based on their race, gender, or background. These assumptions weren't new to her. They were the same kind of judgments she had faced all her life. Yet it was one thing to be subjected to such treatment, and another to finally confront it head-on. What she did on that jet wasn't just about firing the crew. It was about reclaiming her power, her place in the world, and her voice in a system that had tried to silence her for too long. What had begun as a humiliating and demeaning experience transformed into an opportunity for justice and growth. The crew's judgment had been based on stereotypes and narrow perceptions that they had clearly internalized, and perhaps even believed were acceptable in a world that often placed invisible barriers between those with power and those without. But Elena wasn't just a bystander in her own life. She was a disruptor, a force to be reckoned with. She had built her empire on a foundation of resilience, intelligence, and integrity, qualities that made her deserving of respect, not condescension. By firing the entire crew, Elena wasn't just punishing them for their mistake. She was making a statement to the world. She was saying that no one, no matter how high their rank, no matter how much they thought they knew about who she was, could ever again diminish her worth or challenge her authority. She was showing them that their biases, their assumptions, and their sense of superiority had no place in a world where merit, hard work, and dignity should define who a person is. But beyond the lesson of retribution was a deeper lesson about the power of self-worth. Elena had always known her value. She had always understood that her presence in any room, on any plane, or in any boardroom was earned through her expertise, her leadership, and her commitment to her vision. The crew's failure to recognize that was their problem, not hers. She had the right to exist in spaces of power, to take up space, and to be seen and respected for who she was, an accomplished, brilliant, and capable woman, unapologetically at the top of her game. As the plane cut through the clouds, Elena thought about what she would do next. She had already proven that she could overcome the challenges life had thrown at her. Whether it was the challenges of a corporate world that often doubted her, or the personal hurdles of navigating a society that placed barriers based on race and gender. But this moment, this victory, was something more. It was a turning point, not just for her, but for all those who had ever been underestimated, dismissed, or marginalized. It was a message to them that their voices mattered, that they too could rise above the forces that sought to keep them down. Elena's journey was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. This was a small moment in the grand tapestry of her life, but it was a powerful one. It was a reminder that the world is full of people who will try to impose their views upon you, to judge you before they even understand who you truly are. But those people can be silenced, not with anger, but with strength, with dignity, and with the unwavering conviction that you belong wherever you choose to stand.